Property investing, obviously all about numbers, and so with the latest property statistics from around the country, we're still joined, of course, by Charles Tarbey in the studio and also Arthur Chalaftis from realestate.com.au. So let's talk about these. We always obviously do this at the end of the show. Let's start with auction clearance rates.
Well, they are very different, and they're getting even more and more different, and I'm glad to hear about it too. The national clearance rate for auctions this week was a low 63.5% across the nation, and it was 68.3 this time last year. Now, you keep hearing this talk of massive prices and movement going on, and last weekend in Sydney, the highest number of auctions are being put up. Well, the clearance rate in Sydney itself, that was actually low as well. It was nowhere near where it used to be. It's 68.1% last week, and it's been in the 70s and early 80s a couple of times. So the clearance rates have dropped there, and in Melbourne they're down to 65.5. So they're very low clearance rates in comparison to the stories that you're hearing out there in the marketplace.
What does this have to do with Christmas?
Good news for Arthur, because more and more stock coming on the market, more and more people spending money and having to keep spending it for longer because it's going to take longer to sell.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic for Arthur. That's why he's smiling.
In terms of Christmas coming, though, I mean, we spoke to Tom Panos a little earlier about it, but what do you think's happening as we head into Christmas? What tends to happen in the next month or so?
A lot of people think that it slows down, but actually it gets a little busy because a lot of people are thinking about moving or being transferred for next year. They look at schooling for their kids. Things change. So actually Christmas isn't too bad a time. It's not great for auctions because people are moving around on holidays. And this is where they start moving around on holidays right back to the coastal areas that we were just talking about. And with the weather we have and with the prices being lower than they have been for some time in those areas, and people going on holidays, I think you'll start to see an uplift in that area. Still be active, not as active in the capital cities.
What do you see in terms of stock online coming into the Christmas period?
We're actually up, so that's probably why I'm smiling.
Yeah, you're smiling,
so Tom talked about more stock coming on the market, so we're seeing that for the first time. We're seeing some positive numbers.
Well, we're up
versus last year.
2.05%.
Yeah, and we're up about 0.8% on a year-to-date basis, so that would reflect growth.
We've had weeks and weeks of growth. Last week was 2.44%. The week before that was 3.99%.
Here we are looking at homes advertised for sale right now.
2.04. And the same's happening in New Zealand. There's an uplift in stock right through those areas. Manurewa, Auckland, Wellington's continuing its upward movement in stock. Only a couple of the areas suffered a little bit in stock loss, but most of that region has also increased substantially in stock. So there is a big climb, and that's wonderful to see. So we think that's going to see us right through Christmas very nicely.
Okay, residential rent price movements.
They haven't changed much right throughout the whole year. I kept charts going for a very long time and have been watching the climb, and they climbed quite dramatically about 2 years ago or even a year and a half ago, and then they sat idle. And the percentages from zero to where I started these charts, Sydney is sitting at 8.38%, and Melbourne, 12.38%. Melbourne is sitting at 8.58%, but Perth is the best one at 19%, just over 19, giving us an average of 13.55%. So been sitting in the 12 to 13 range for a very long time, almost the entire year. So not much movement at all.
All right, and vacancy rates as well? Pretty
steady as well. Sydney 2.11% this last week, Melbourne 2.71%, and Perth at 6.61%. And that's given us an average of 4.14% right across the nation. Not too bad. Perth has come back. It was getting high there for a little while. Started to come back a little bit, which is good news.
Do you see much correlation between the rental houses on the market and the houses up for sale?
In terms of the generally I think you know, there's an index that's done that looks at basically rental rates versus repayment rates, and what you see is, depending on the market, you can see a switch between those, where basically the cost of rent becomes, you know, sort of to a point where you're better off buying, and we see some switching in the market, and we've seen a transition of those suburbs over time.
All right, well, that does wrap this show. Arthur Chalaftis and Charles Tarbey, thanks so much for joining us on the show tonight. Thanks for joining us this evening. Chris Gray will be back in the seat next week, so make sure you tune in.
The information featured in this program is general.